I signed up for the Vulpine exchange program for the same reason most humans sign up for anything labeled interstellar cultural opportunity, free housing, subsidized meals, and the vague hope that my life would become more interesting without requiring actual ambition. The brochure promised cross-species understanding, shared growth, and something called mutual environmental adaptation. That last part should have been a warning, but I was too busy imagining a private room on a space station that didn't smell like recycled feet. The word strange was right there in the title of the program. Bolded even. I assumed it meant alien food, odd customs, maybe a different sense of personal space. I did not assume it meant legally binding warmth obligations. The onboarding process took 3 hours and a biometric scan that involved standing barefoot on a glowing platform while a polite machine informed me my core temperature was enthusiastically high. That phrasing should also have concerned me. Instead, I laughed because humans laugh when they're uncomfortable, and apparently that was noted too. A small drone hovered, blinked twice, and logged my response as positive effect during thermal assessment. The first stack of paperwork explained the basics. Vulpines, it said, evolved on a high-altitude world with extreme nocturnal temperature drops. Brilliant engineers, meticulous planners, emotionally reserved, and this was underlined, thermally inefficient in shared habitats. Humans, on the other hand, were categorized as ambient heat contributors. We radiated warmth. Apparently, we did it casually. Recklessly even. That's how I ended up paired with a Vulpine roommate. Her name was Salith. She stood about a head shorter than me, covered in sleek silver fur that looked impossibly soft without ever asking permission to be touched. Her tail moved with precise intent, not wagging so much as annotating. When she looked at me, her ears angled forward, eyes sharp and curious, like I was a particularly interesting equation. Your presence will increase habitation efficiency by an estimated 32%, she said by way of greeting. Cool, I replied, immediately realizing that cool was the wrong word. She tilted her head. That is the opposite of your function. We moved into our assigned quarters, which were technically a shared living unit with optional internal partitions. The partitions were present but unused, folded neatly into the wall like they were optimistic suggestions rather than expectations. The room temperature was set low. Uncomfortably low. I rubbed my arms. Salith noticed instantly. You are experiencing heat loss, she said, stepping closer. We should initiate shared warmth protocol. I laughed again. Nervous laughter this time. Is that now? Like immediately? She consulted her wrist display. The sooner the better. Delay increases inefficiency. Before I could ask what inefficiency meant in this context, she handed me a tablet. Another form. I skimmed it quickly, catching phrases like proximity tolerance, contact duration variability, and cuddle compliance, voluntary. Voluntary was bolded, which somehow made it worse. I can decline this, right? I asked. Of course, she said calmly. But then I would need to file a cold stress incident report. Those are extensive. I signed. The first protocol session involved sitting on opposite ends of the couch while the environmental system adjusted itself in response to our combined heat output. The couch warmed slightly. The lights dimmed. Somewhere, a sensor hummed approvingly. Is this enough? I asked. Salith frowned at her display. Suboptimal. You are underutilizing your thermal range. I'm sitting, I said. Aggressively. She considered that. Then she scooted closer. Not touching. Just close enough that I could feel it. Heat transfer. Efficient, apparently. Better, she said. This became a pattern. Every day more forms. More protocols. Extended proximity trial. Night cycle heat retention assessment. Passive contact allowance. Every phrase sounded like it should not be read aloud, yet she read all of them aloud, clinically, efficiently, with the air of someone explaining a grocery list. I learned very quickly that Vulpines did not flirt. They documented. You generate consistent warmth even during rest. Salith observed one evening as I lay on my side of the bed. Yes, bed, it was a single unit, don't ask, while she sat upright beside me, tail wrapped neatly around her legs. Impressive. Thanks, I muttered. I do cardio. She logged that. I tried to set boundaries, really I did. I asked about partitions again. She explained that installing them would negatively impact warmth diffusion. I suggested blankets. She brightened at that and ordered 6, all designed to maximize heat retention and minimize thermal leakage. Somehow, that still resulted in more proximity, not less. The worst part was that none of it was secret. The station AI began greeting me as primary thermal contributor. Other exchange participants nodded respectfully when I passed. A reptilian diplomat once gave me a thumbs up and said, "Heard you're running a tight warmth operation." I didn't ask how he heard that. Salith, meanwhile, remained perfectly composed. She followed every guideline. She requested consent before every adjustment. May I increase contact duration? Is tail adjacency acceptable at this angle? You appear flushed, should we recalibrate? I said yes more often than I should have, mostly because saying no required a justification form. Then came the day she filed the emotional bond confirmation. She mentioned it casually, over breakfast. I have submitted preliminary documentation, she said, sipping a nutrient solution that steamed faintly. Nothing binding yet. Documentation for what? I asked, halfway through a protein bar. She looked at me, ears relaxed, tail still. Affection classification. I choked. She waited patiently while I recovered. Your responses have been consistent with sustained pair bond indicators, she continued. You remain present during discomfort. You provide warmth without expectation of immediate reciprocation. You exhibit relaxed breathing patterns and shared rest states. That's just being human, I said weakly. She smiled. Just slightly. Yes. That is why it is notable. A soft chime sounded from the wall console. Emotional bond status, pending review. I stared at it. Salith, I said carefully. I think there's been a misunderstanding. She tilted her head again. About? I gestured vaguely between us, the couch, the blankets, the bed, the warmth. All of this. She followed my gesture, then nodded. Agreed. This is significant. Somewhere, a system logged my elevated heart rate and classified it as positive emotional engagement. By the time the emotional bond status switched from pending review to under observation, I had learned 2 important facts about the Vulpine exchange program. First, nothing on the station was truly private. Second, once something was under observation, it was no longer optional. Salith didn't change her behavior at all, which somehow made it worse. She still asked permission before initiating any protocol adjustments, still spoke in that calm, precise tone, still treated every interaction like a cooperative research effort. The only difference was that now everything we did came with footnotes. Your warmth output has increased during shared leisure activities, she noted one evening as we sat on the couch, supposedly watching a documentary about asteroid farming. I say supposedly because the couch had slowly reconfigured itself over the past week, nudging us closer by millimeters at a time in response to station efficiency metrics. At some point, my arm had ended up resting against her side. That's probably because you turned the temperature down again, I said. Yes, she replied. To encourage natural compensation. I shifted slightly. Her tail flicked, then paused, resting against my leg. A soft chime sounded from the wall. Passive contact logged. I didn't do anything, I said quickly. I know, she said. That is why it is passive. The problem wasn't that anything explicit was happening. The problem was that everything sounded explicit. The station systems loved labels, and the labels did not care about my dignity. The daily report included phrases like sustained proximity, extended contact window, and mutual comfort maintenance. Once, I caught a glimpse of a chart that tracked warmth saturation over time. The curve was labeled stable and promising. Other residents noticed. A human engineer cornered me in the corridor and asked, in a whisper, if the rumors were true. I asked what rumors? He waggled his eyebrows and said, "You know. The fox thing." "There is no fox thing," I said. He nodded sympathetically. "That's what they all say." Salith, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly efficient. She optimized our schedules so that we were in the quarters at the same time during peak cold cycles. She rearranged furniture to improve heat circulation. She even requested that my exercise routine be shifted indoors after discovering that my post-workout body temperature remained elevated for several hours. "This benefits both of us," she explained, handing me another tablet to sign. "Is this the one where I agree to sweat near you?" I asked. She considered the phrasing. "Colloquially, yes." I signed. What really threw me was how seriously she took my comfort. If I flinched, she noticed. If I hesitated, she paused. Once, when I pulled back slightly during a particularly long shared warmth session, she immediately disengaged and filed a boundary respect acknowledgement. I received a system notification praising her for exemplary conduct. It was hard to be mad at someone who followed the rules better than anyone I'd ever met. Still, the misunderstandings piled up. In Vulpine culture, it turned out, sustained warmth exchange was not something you did casually. It was reserved for trusted individuals. Important ones. The kind you planned around. Humans, on the other hand, loan body heat the way we loan chargers. Salith didn't know that. She began asking questions. Careful ones. "Is this level of proximity typical among your species? Do humans frequently engage in shared rests without formal declarations? Is vocal teasing a sign of affection or dominance?" "Usually both," I said, then immediately regretted it. She logged that too. The station AI updated my classification from ambient heat contributor to preferred thermal partner. I received a badge. I stopped wearing it. One night, during a particularly aggressive cold cycle, the system initiated an automatic shared warmth override. The lights dimmed. The couch shifted. The blankets tightened slightly, like they were trying to be helpful. I found myself closer to Salith than usual, her side pressed against mine, her tail curled loosely around my calf. "This is new," I said. "Yes," she agreed. "Emergency conditions allow for expanded parameters." "Expanded how?" "Contact duration and surface area," she replied calmly. "Of course." I tried to focus on my breathing. She was warm now too, warmer than before. Efficient heat sharing worked both ways, apparently. I became acutely aware of every small movement, every accidental brush of fur against fabric, every time the system chimed approvingly. "This sounds bad," I muttered. "It sounds successful," she corrected. The next morning, I woke up to a notification, mutual comfort threshold achieved. Below it was a note informing me that our cohabitation metrics exceeded baseline expectations by 40%. There was a suggestion, just a suggestion, that we consider long-term pairing for optimal station efficiency. I nearly dropped my tablet. Salith watched me carefully. "Is this undesirable?" I rubbed my face. "It's not that. It's just that humans don't usually escalate like this." She nodded slowly. "Fascinating. Then your species engages in high-intimacy behaviors without intent?" "Most of the time, yeah." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "That explains several historical incidents. Despite everything, despite the rumors and the forms and the relentless documentation of my accidental intimacy, I couldn't bring myself to shut it down completely. Part of that was fear of the paperwork. Part of it was that Salith genuinely seemed happier. Warmer. More relaxed. Her tail moved more freely now, less restrained. She laughed once, an actual laugh, when I joked about humans being walking space heaters. "You are," she said fondly. "Exceptionally so." The word fondly triggered another alert. At some point, I realized the problem wasn't that Salith thought we were bonded. The problem was that, according to every system on the station, We were behaving exactly like two people who were. And from her perspective, I was the one sending mixed signals. The power failure hit during the station's artificial night cycle, which meant two things happened at once. The temperature plummeted, and every system designed to compensate panicked. I woke up shivering to the sound of alarms that were very carefully labeled non-emergency comfort notifications. The lights were low red, the kind meant to keep everyone calm while implying the opposite. Somewhere in the walls, vents clicked uselessly. Before I could sit up, the station AI spoke. Attention residents. Due to an unexpected energy redistribution event, environmental heating is temporarily offline. Please initiate approved biological compensation protocols. Salith was already awake. She sat up smoothly, ears alert, eyes reflecting the red glow. Shared warmth override has been authorized, she said, checking her display. Expanded parameters confirmed. I don't like the sound of expanded, I said, teeth chattering. She tilted her head. You will momentarily. The couch retracted into the wall. The bed shifted, widened slightly, blankets deploying themselves with mechanical enthusiasm. The system was very proud of this solution. I barely had time to process what was happening before Salith moved closer, efficiently, like this was a drill she'd practiced. This is not a drill, I muttered. It is not, she agreed. Drills are optional. The temperature dropped another degree. I stopped arguing. We lay side by side, closer than we ever had before. Not scandalous. Just undeniably intimate in that extremely unromantic, highly technical way only bureaucracy could manage. The blankets adjusted, sealing in heat. Sensors hummed. The station sighed in relief. Please remain still, the AI advised. Movement may disrupt thermal equilibrium. I feel like I should apologize in advance, I said. For what? Salith asked. For whatever happens next. She considered that. Your concern is noted. The problem with Vulpine anatomy, I discovered, was the tail. It had a mind of its own, or at least a set of instincts that did not care about my dignity. As Salith shifted slightly to optimize contact, purely for efficiency obviously, her tail brushed against my leg. The system chimed. Contact area increased. I didn't touch anything, I said quickly. I am aware, she replied. Your limbs remain compliant. Another shiver ran through me. Instinctively, without thinking, I adjusted the blanket. In doing so, my knee bumped her hip. Her tail reacted, curling reflexively. Around my ankle. We froze. The tail was warm. Warmer than it had any right to be. It tightened just a little, not gripping so much as anchoring. The station's systems went wild. Unexpected thermal loop detected. Evaluating stability. Stability improved. This is new, I whispered. Yes, Salith said softly. This has not occurred before. Should we undo it? She checked her display, then hesitated. I'd never seen her hesitate before. Disengagement may cause a drop in shared warmth efficiency. The temperature dipped, just to prove her point. I hate this program, I said. I find it adequate, she replied. The tail remained where it was. I became acutely aware of every sensation, every shift of weight, every breath. Not because anything explicit was happening, it wasn't, but because my brain was screaming that this looked like something it definitely wasn't prepared to explain. A notification popped up in my peripheral display. Tail entanglement incident logged. Classification, accidental. Duration monitoring. Accidental? I asked. Yes, Salith said. Intentional entanglement requires prior declaration. Good, I said. Very good. We lay there in silence, listening to the station's systems recalibrate. Slowly, the cold retreated. The blankets loosened. The alarms softened into gentle hums. Against all logic, it was comfortable. More than comfortable. It was calming. I hated that too. Salith spoke quietly. You are tense. I'm always tense, I said. It's a human thing. She adjusted slightly, careful not to disturb the tail. Your heart rate is elevated beyond baseline anxiety. That's also a human thing. She didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was different. Less clinical. You do not need to remain if this causes distress. I swallowed. And freeze? She nodded. That is an option. I sighed. Stay. The system chimed again. Mutual choice confirmed. Of course it did. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Time got fuzzy when you were trapped in a situation you couldn't explain to anyone without sounding ridiculous. I felt Salith relax gradually, her breathing evening out. The tail loosened slightly but didn't move away. This has meaning, she said eventually. I stared at the ceiling. For you or for the station? For my people, she said. Shared warmth under duress signifies trust. Great, I muttered. Humans trust strangers on public transport. She huffed softly. A laugh, maybe? You are careless with intimacy. We really are, I admitted. It's mostly accidental. That explains much, she said. Another alert appeared. Emotional bond status, escalated. Reason, sustained comfort during adverse conditions. I closed my eyes. I didn't mean to escalate anything. I know, Salith said. Intent is not required. When the power finally returned, it did so gradually, like it was embarrassed about the whole thing. The blankets retracted. The bed returned to its normal dimensions. The temperature stabilized. The tail slipped free, smooth and unhurried. Neither of us moved for a moment. That, I said carefully, was not what it looked like. Salith sat up, composed as ever. On the contrary, she said. It was exactly what it looked like. She met my eyes. You stayed. The system logged that too. By morning, the incident report had already circulated. Other residents avoided eye contact. A message from station administration congratulated us on exemplary adaptive bonding under stress. I stared at the words adaptive bonding for a long time. Whatever line I thought we hadn't crossed, the station clearly believed we had leapt over it, tripped, and landed in something officially recognized. And judging by the way Salith looked at me now, warm, steady, unconfused, I was the only one still pretending this was an accident. By the time the station declared our warmth metrics exceptionally stable, I had accepted that pretending nothing had happened was no longer an option. The systems had decided. The forms had been filed. Somewhere in a database, my name was now permanently associated with phrases like sustained comfort partner and reliable emotional anchor, none of which I remembered applying for. Salith, for her part, was patient. She didn't crowd me, didn't push, didn't suddenly become more physical now that the tail entanglement incident had been logged and notarized by half the station. If anything, she was more careful, more aware. She gave me space unless I asked for proximity. She asked more questions. Real ones. You are unsettled, she said one evening, watching me pace the room while the environmental system hummed contentedly. But you have not withdrawn. I don't know how to explain humans without sounding irresponsible, I said. We do a lot of things without meaning them. And then we mean them later. Sometimes. She nodded slowly. That is inefficient. Extremely, I agreed. We sat together, not touching. On purpose. The station seemed confused by this but allowed it. For now. In my culture, Salith said, shared warmth is not casual. It requires trust, patience, and willingness to remain during vulnerability. Humans do that all the time, I said. We just don't call it anything. She considered me carefully. That is what makes your species dangerous. I snorted. Because we're cozy? Because you are kind without contract, she replied. You offer comfort before certainty. That hit harder than I expected. The misunderstanding, when we finally addressed it, was almost anticlimactic. I explained that I hadn't joined the program looking for attachment, that I'd stumbled into the protocols because it was easier than pushing back, that half the time I didn't know where the lines were because humans were terrible at drawing them. She listened. Really listened. No tablet. No logging. "I did not intend to trap you," she said when I finished. "Your compliance suggested consent." "It did," I admitted. "That part's on me." Silence stretched between us. Not awkward. Just honest. "So," I said eventually, "what does in love mean to you?" She thought about it. "It means you are safe with me. It means I will prioritize your comfort. It means I will remain, even if conditions worsen." I blinked. "That's it." She tilted her head. "Is that insufficient?" I laughed, a little breathless. "No. It's just humans make it messier." She smiled. A real one this time. We renegotiated. Not with forms, though the station did try, but with actual words. Shared warmth would be optional, not assumed. Proximity by request, not protocol. No automatic escalation without a conversation first. The station AI protested briefly, then updated our status to non-standard cooperative cohabitation. I took that as a win. The funny thing was, once the pressure was gone, the warmth didn't stop. I still ran hot. She still ran cold. Sometimes, without thinking, I'd sit closer. Sometimes she'd lean in, just slightly, and wait. Consent, it turned out, was more efficient than paperwork. The galaxy learned a few things from humans after that. Not all of it flattering. We were classified as emotionally unpredictable, biologically overpowered in thermal output, and alarmingly casual with intimacy. Exchange programs were updated. New guidelines issued. Humans were no longer paired without extensive counseling and optional disclaimers. We were also declared essential. Because when things went wrong, when power failed, when temperatures dropped, when systems collapsed, humans stayed. We complained, we panicked, we filled out the forms wrong, but we stayed. We shared warmth because it felt wrong not to. Salas submitted a final report before the program ended. I didn't read it, but I saw the summary line. Human companionship increases survivability beyond projected metrics. On my last night aboard the station, the temperature dipped unexpectedly. No alarms this time. No overrides. Just a quiet chill. I felt Salas shift beside me. She waited. I leaned closer. The system, mercifully, did not log it.